You want your deposit back
Yes,
from the
ma'am.
defendant who was supposed to fix your car.
Yes, ma'am.
And this car was a 2007 Saturn.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you purchase it?
Roughly 2011.
Was it?
The courtroom grew eerily quiet the moment Judge Judy began peeling back the layers of a dispute that seemed straightforward on the surface, but was quickly revealing itself to be a story of broken promises, misplaced trust, and costly consequences. What appeared to be an ordinary disagreement between a customer and a mechanic soon transformed into a tense and emotionally charged courtroom showdown that kept everyone in the room hanging on every word. The plaintiff, a hard-working vehicle owner, explained that he had purchased the car from a dealership and had driven it until the engine began making a disturbing knocking sound. After speaking with others who suggested that the vehicle likely needed a complete engine replacement, he decided to put the repair on hold. Fortunately, he owned other vehicles and did not depend on this particular car for daily transportation, so for several months, the disabled vehicle remained parked while he considered his options. As time passed, the plaintiff became determined to restore the car rather than let it sit unused. Wanting to find someone trustworthy to perform the repair, he began researching local mechanics. He didn't rush the decision. Instead, he carefully searched online, reviewed business pages, and sought recommendations from people he trusted. One name continued to appear in a positive light. The defendant operated an automotive repair business and had received favorable reviews on social media. The plaintiff's aunt had previously used the mechanic and reported a good experience. Curious but cautious, the plaintiff even reached out directly to individuals who had left reviews online, asking whether the mechanic was reliable and honest. Every response seemed encouraging. Not a single warning sign appeared. Convinced he had found the right person for the job, he contacted the mechanic and arranged to have the vehicle towed to a shop in December of 2016. The plaintiff handed over $1,200, believing the payment would secure the engine replacement and get the vehicle back on the road. At that moment, he felt optimistic. The car was finally in the hands of someone who appeared experienced and reputable. But as days turned into weeks, that optimism slowly began to fade. Communication became inconsistent. Progress appeared non-existent. Excuses started replacing updates. What was supposed to be a straightforward repair gradually became a frustrating waiting game. 6 long weeks passed, and the vehicle remained unfinished. Eventually, the plaintiff had no choice but to retrieve the car. Yet when he arrived, he discovered something he never expected. Inside the courtroom, Judge Judy listened carefully as the plaintiff described the condition of the vehicle when he recovered it. The car was not repaired. In fact, it was barely recognizable from the condition in which he had delivered it. Engine components had been removed and tossed into the vehicle. Oil and grease covered parts of the light gray leather interior. The plaintiff's frustration was obvious. He had paid a substantial amount of money, waited patiently, and trusted the mechanic to complete the work. Instead, he was left with a dismantled vehicle and a growing sense that he had been taken advantage of. Then the defendant finally had an opportunity to explain himself. His story was dramatic and filled with personal misfortune. According to him, everything had gone wrong at once. He claimed that conflict erupted between himself, a business partner, and the landlord of the property where the shop operated. The situation allegedly spiraled out of control. He said he lost access to the shop. Tools disappeared. Paperwork vanished. Vehicles were towed away. His business, which had once seemed stable, suddenly collapsed around him. As he described the chaos, some observers in the courtroom could almost sympathize with the overwhelming series of setbacks he claimed to have suffered. For a brief moment, it seemed possible that he had simply become a victim of circumstances beyond his control. But Judge Judy was not interested in emotional distractions. She focused on the facts. Her questions became sharper, more precise, more difficult to avoid. Had the plaintiff's vehicle actually been repaired? No. Had the customer received the service he paid for? No. Had the defendant returned the money? Again, no. Every answer pushed the case closer to an unavoidable conclusion. The mechanic attempted to explain that work had begun on the vehicle and that he had informed the plaintiff about the problems affecting the shop. Yet the more he talked, the more contradictions began to appear. His explanation seemed unable to overcome the simple reality standing in front of the court. Then came the moment that shifted the atmosphere entirely. Judge Judy asked a direct question about the condition of the car. Was it returned in the same condition as when it arrived? The mechanic initially suggested that, aside from the engine work, little had changed, but the plaintiff immediately challenged that claim. He described engine parts scattered inside the vehicle and oil staining the leather interior. The courtroom tension rose noticeably. Judge Judy demanded answers. Why were greasy engine components inside the back seat? The mechanic struggled to provide a clear explanation. First, he implied he had not placed them there himself. Then he blamed the confusion surrounding the closure of his shop. His answers lacked certainty. His confidence began to disappear. Every attempt to explain the situation seemed to create even more questions. The audience could sense the momentum shifting. What had started as a story about unfortunate business troubles was becoming a story about responsibility. Judge Judy remained calm but relentless. She refused to allow sympathy for the mechanic's personal problems to overshadow the central issue. Customers pay for results, not excuses. Businesses face challenges every day, but those challenges do not erase obligations. The defendant had accepted $1,200. He had not repaired the vehicle, he had not returned the money, and the customer was left with a car that was arguably in worse condition than before. As the final moments of the case approached, there was little suspense remaining about where Judge Judy was headed. The evidence was clear. The facts were straightforward. The mechanic's hardships may have explained why the work was never completed, but they did not excuse keeping the customer's money. With the confidence and authority that have made her courtroom legendary, Judge Judy delivered her ruling. Judgment for the plaintiff, in the amount of $1,200. The decision was swift, decisive, and impossible to argue against. The plaintiff finally received validation after months of frustration and disappointment. The defendant sat silently as the consequences of his actions became undeniable. When the case ended, it left behind a powerful lesson that resonated far beyond the courtroom walls. Trust can take years to build and only moments to destroy. A good reputation may attract customers, but accountability determines whether that reputation survives. And, as Judge Judy demonstrated once again, personal misfortune may explain a failure, but it never eliminates responsibility. In the end, the customer walked away with justice, the mechanic walked away with a judgment against him, and everyone watching was reminded that promises mean nothing unless they are backed by action.